I was having Yashaba Rico from RicoScores, and I'm sorry I got to delay the defensive coordinator candidate, my favorite defensive coordinator candidate video, just a little bit longer because out of nowhere I saw this and I was like, we gotta talk about this immediately. Right now, experts predict that Washington Commanders Pro Bowl defensive tackle Jonathan Allen could potentially be traded to the Packers for a second and a fourth round pick, and that's a little bit more than I expected people to be willing to give us in return. I was thinking maybe a third by itself and that's it. A second and a fourth, that's really interesting. So we're gonna do a deep dive into that. We're gonna talk about why that's a win-win, why the Packers strongly benefit from that situation, and why the Commanders, especially in the rebuild stage, benefit from this mightily. Of course, it would hurt to lose not only a franchise cornerstone player, but like a face of the franchise, a locker room leader, all of that. It would suck, but man, the cap space we would gain. So of course we got to update the cap space as far as how much we would have if we were to trade away Jonathan Allen. And then of course we got to take a look at a lot of the top NFL free agents that the Washington Commanders could sign with those Jonathan Allen savings in cap space, and also some Washington Commanders unrestricted free agents that Washington could make sure they re-sign with that type of money as well. And let me go ahead and preface this with the fact that I'm not here to debate whether this is a reliable source or not, if this is very likely to happen or not likely at all to happen. I'm not here for that. We're here for just to completely dissect the scenario. Say if we were to trade Jonathan Allen for a second and a fourth, how would everybody potentially benefit from that? I'm not here to try to figure out whether this is a trustworthy source or not. This is Rico of RicoScores. We're here to break down why and why not for things, not how, not when. We're here to explain why we should and why we shouldn't. But before we dive into all of that, make sure you stiff arm that like button, stiff arm the subscription button, and stiff arm the bell next to that subscription button so you get notification each and every time I release an informative and opinionated video just like this one. Make sure you stay tuned because again, I'm your one-stop shop for everything Commanders. Just came out with the mock draft last night, updated y'all on how Ben Johnson first time speaking on the Commanders a little bit earlier, and I gave you the clip of him saying it at his press conference. And again, I'm working on my favorite defensive coordinator video. Well, really everything's ready to go. I just got to record and edit, but random breaking news like this just keep coming out and delaying all of my videos I have prepared that I'm ready to talk about and dive into. So make sure you stay tuned for all of the content, live streams, exclusive film sessions for channel members only, all of that type of stuff. Stay tuned. Without further ado, man, let's go ahead and get to it. Let's get it. All right, so the headline reads, the Packers are predicted to trade second and fourth round picks for Washington Commanders Jonathan Allen. That is very interesting, man. So according to Alex K of Bleacher Report, the Washington Commanders are a good bet to be active in the trade market during the 2024 offseason. The team is coming off of a disappointing 4-13 campaign, its worst since 2019, and now have a general manager in place in Adam Peters. While Peters' first task will be finding the organization's next head coach, he'll soon get to work on crafting a roster that can contend. While Washington has 9 picks in the 2024 draft, 4 in the top 67, it could use more to overhaul a pockmarked lineup, deal in veterans to free up salary cap space, and add more draft capital to coffers should be a priority for Peters. Due to this shift in focus, Jonathan Allen, the team's standout defensive tackle, could be on the way out after 7 seasons with the club. Allen has some of the most trade value on the team after making back-to-back Pro Bowls, both 2021 and 2022, while his 5.5 sacks this year were his lowest total since 2020. He still had a strong individual season and appeared in at least 15 games for the 7th straight year. Great points. Allen had openly expressed frustration with the Commanders were faring during a trying 2023 campaign. He's previously admitted that despite growing up as a fan of the team in Virginia, he's given thought to playing elsewhere and wants to be a part of a winning franchise. And my question is, how patient are you, Jonathan Allen? Because we may not be ready to contend next year, but I strongly believe, I'm very optimistic that we'll be able to contend sooner than a lot of people think. But it may not be 2024. So if you're like, I need to be on a winner right now, 2024, then this is a big win for him potentially. That would make him happier, and we're definitely going to talk about why this makes the Packers potentially happier and how this also benefits the Commanders, especially in the long run. Maybe not immediately, but in the long run, it can definitely benefit us more so to trade him than to keep him. While he hasn't officially requested a trade, it's possible he won't have to if the team implements a full-blown rebuild, and that's an opportunity. That's a thing that there's a chance that could happen. You know, that's a very strong possibility out here. ESPN's Jeremy Fowler said the teams have been inquiring about Allen's availability leading up to the deadline and noted that Washington could strip things down to the studs this spring. With Allen owed just $29.5 million total over the next 2 seasons, there should be no shortage of interest if he's shopped around. And I don't know where they're getting $29.5 million in total over the next 2 seasons, because his cap hits definitely hit more than that, but we're going to dive into that very soon. So let's talk about on the Packers side, why they would even want to do this, why they would consider this, and why there are experts out there not only saying they should, but are predicting that they will. That's pretty strong, man. So why does this make sense for the Packers? Now that they know that they can win with Jordan Love, they can go from looking for a quarterback potentially and considering rebuilding after trading away Devontae Adams and Aaron Rodgers to now fully committing to a win now philosophy, man. I'm telling you, building on a great 2023 season with them still in contention for winning a Super Bowl right now. They're still out there. They're still in the playoffs, unlike the Cowboys. A lot of people doubted if they would be any good entering the season at all. Well, at the very least, we know that they're at least good enough to embarrass the Cowboys in Dallas and send them home early. Shouts out to the Cowboys and the Eagles, man. Again, I'm gonna keep saying it. What was it all for, man? But trading for Jonathan Allen would instantly make them better, like immediately. A good amount better as well. There's definitely a significant jump that they would get from acquiring Jonathan Allen due a trade. They are already way better than the Cowboys, as we saw a few days ago, but this would turn them into a real Super Bowl contender. And I'm sure they wish they could trade for him right now. Like, if they could just somehow do it, if somehow they could reach out to Roger Goodell and bypass any rules and laws in the NFL, they would probably trade for Jonathan Allen right now. If they knew that they would be this strong of a playoff contender, they probably would have traded for him before the trade deadline late October. I mean, but I don't even think they knew that they would be this good. Again, not only to beat the Cowboys, but to embarrass them the way that they did in Dallas. The Green Bay Packers look like a serious contender for winning this Super Bowl coming up. There's a lot of great teams out there, but it's kind of wide open right now. Also, their D-line is already good. I'm not going to sit here and act like their D-line is trash. It's actually really good, but I would for sure argue that Jonathan Allen would be the best defensive lineman on their team the day that they traded for him. Before he even fully learns the defense and the scheme, Jonathan Allen comes in day one and is their best defensive tackle. And then also the person that wrote the article, Alex K of Bleacher Report, that reported all of this, they said, because I didn't read the entire article, but they said that the Packers could use some help on the defensive front. Even on the heels of a strong regular season finish and wild card round victory, the Packers still have a real need in the defensive trenches after allowing a lowly 126.3 rushing yards per game and tallying a middling 45 sacks in 2023. Again, I feel like individually, they do have some pretty good players on the defensive line, but adding to Jonathan Allen can't hurt. And I definitely feel like it would take them from, in my opinion, a bunch of individual good defensive linemen to one of the best defensive lines in the NFL potentially. I think they're just that Jonathan Allen away for real. And they also potentially have enough cap space to take on this contract now and to extend them if they really want to go ahead and extend that contract and have him beyond when his contract ends, which is the end of the 2025 season, which is, I think they will more than likely do. Like, you don't trade for a guy like Jonathan Allen without at least some sort of a goal and at least a basic plan, like a surface plan to attack and find a way to extend him long term, especially after potentially giving up a second and a fourth round pick for him. All of that draft capital to only get him on potentially a 2-year rental. I think they would be ready to try to extend him as soon as possible. So now looking at his cap hits right now, in 2024 alone, he would be a $21.4 million cap hit. And in 2025, he would be a $23 million cap hit. But you know, with trades, things get weird, and somehow you can agree in principle that, like, if for the Commanders on our side, we eat some of that cap space for the Packers to encourage them to give us that second and fourth round pick rather than just a third or just a fourth by itself. So you never know. But just best case scenario on the Commanders end, if we were to get a second and fourth round pick and the Packers will be willing to eat up all of the cap space and all of the money that he's owed. Again, he would eat up nearly $22 million in cap space in 2024 and $23 million in cap space in 2025. But again, I feel like before they even get to 2025, they would extend them long term, and that number will probably go down a little bit annually, but he would get more money in the long term overall. But as of right now, it says that they have $7 million in cap space, but when I looked at their cap space situation, they have plenty of options to gain more cap space if they really want to. With certain cuts and restructures, they can easily get it to the point where they can acquire Jonathan Allen. I've seen teams with less cap space get more. We've seen it several off seasons with us as Commanders fans complaining, man, we got more cap space than them. How are they bringing over these elite free agents and things like that? And the Packers have more cap space than those teams had. So they definitely could. If they really want Jonathan Allen, they could get Jonathan Allen. And that would also be really interesting, too, to see Jonathan Allen and Preston Smith reunited as well. They didn't play together for long, but that's still pretty interesting. I believe they played together for like a year, maybe two, before Preston Smith left. But either way, that's a pretty interesting reunion right there. I'm pretty sure they would dap each other up, be happy to see each other and stuff like that. So he would at least have somebody that would help him feel at home immediately there. So that's, again, a win for him because he sounds like he wants to go to a contender. Again, he's from the Virginia area. He probably grew up a burgundy and gold fan, Redskins fan. But at the end of the day, how much does he prioritize winning? We'll see. If he goes out there and demands a trade or even requests a trade, we'll see. I feel like even if he's traded and we don't hear that he requested a trade, I'm pretty sure like if he really wanted to stay, he could like make his case for Adam Peters and company to be like, hey man, I really want to stay here. We can make it work. We can even change my contract around a little bit, but I would like to stay. So we'll see. I think it's more than likely that he would end up staying, but I also wouldn't be surprised if he ends up getting traded, especially since I thought that he would go for even less than what this expert is predicting him for him to go for. So, hey man, we'll see. Now, how does it make sense for us? First of all, Adam Peters may want to do a complete rebuild, a clean sweep. He said in his press conference something to the extent that, like, we have some pieces to build with, but we are about to work from the ground up. And that could include trading away and a really good veteran Pro Bowl defensive tackle to start. And not only is there a chance that he may want to create some cap space, but he may also want to purge this roster of anybody that isn't 100% committed. I love Jonathan Allen, and you never know with how well it looks like we're building this organization, this whole operation, and with how it looks like a completely different organization. And Jonathan Allen, if anything, seems like he was more so trying to get away from Rivera, Martin Mayhew, Jack Del Rio, and Dan Snyder than away from the Commanders themselves. But who knows, man? Going out there and saying that he's 1000% thought about getting traded, maybe it was just emotional in the moment, but maybe Adam Peters looked at that and was like, yeah, nah, if you're not 100% on board, you may have to go, especially if it saves us as much cap space as we're going to get in return for him if we do end up trading him. We'll see, though. Again, it's a very complicated situation, very fluid. I'm going to definitely try to keep y'all updated on it as much as possible, especially once we start getting Commander sources on the situation. Right now, this is just a completely outside source that is predicting that this happens. This is not a very trustworthy source. But either way, moving past that, if we did trade away Jonathan Allen, just say we did for that second and a fourth round pick, the Commanders, who already have the most cap space in the NFL at almost $90 million, will gain an additional $21 million in 2024 alone, which would take us to at least $114 million in cap space, which would be the most in the NFL by far, by at least $40 million to the guy right behind us in second place. So that is ridiculous, man. We will have more than double than the majority of the NFL in cap space. Like crazy. Like the Chicago Bears, who are in 8th place with $50 million in cap space. We will have more than double the cap space than the team with the 8th most cap space in the NFL. And then you have a whole nother 24 teams in the NFL under them, including a lot of teams that are in the negatives, like the Chargers, the Saints, the Bills, the Dolphins, the Broncos, Browns, Cowboys, Steelers, and the Seahawks are all in the negatives of cap space. Not a little bit, no, literally negatives. That's insane, man. We have the healthiest cap space situation in the NFL, so there's so many ways we could go with this, with Adam Peters' leadership, potentially who we hire as a head coach and all of that. I'm really excited, and that's one of the main reasons why Adam Peters wanted to come here, because this is the most open possibility completely take the keys, take the wheel situation the GM could land in this hiring cycle right now. It was a match made in heaven for both of us. Now, granted, losing a great player and also an elite leader, again, like a face of the franchise type of guy like Jonathan Allen, is a big loss. But the future benefits could easily end up outweighing the near future negatives. Easily. Just think about the feeling you have now that we have an extra second round pick from sending Montez Sweat to the Bears and the extra third round pick from sending Chase Young to the 49ers. Yeah, when it initially happened, or when we were talking about it could potentially happen, I know especially in my situation, I was like, man, I really would like to at least keep one of those guys. I don't want to have to trade both of them away, man. I really was, but now that both of them are gone, and it's kind of like, you know, it is what it is type of situation. I'm very excited about having an extra second and an extra third round pick. And so now you would get an additional second and fourth round pick as well. You would have the number 2 overall pick, 3 seconds, 2 thirds, and 2 fourths. Come on, man. You can't beat that, man. You know how much draft capital that is to do whatever we want to do? Like, just imagine the players we could draft with that, first of all. Just that additional second and that additional fourth, like the talent that would be available at that point. And maybe even a potential replacement for Jonathan Allen with that pick, with how elite and consistent Adam Peters is at finding all-pro and Pro Bowl talent outside of the first round, especially in day 3. Like rounds 4 through 7, think about it, man. Those extra picks could be huge with the talent evaluator in Adam Peters. I want to put it like this. Having an extra second and fourth round pick with Martin Mayhew and Ron Rivera, not much value. But with Adam Peters and potentially like a Ben Johnson, Bobby Slowick, or Mike McDonald having that extra second or fourth round pick, that's definitely a different feeling to those second and fourth round picks. It feels like we can get serious, true starters, potential Pro Bowlers, and even the ceiling of an all-pro with that second or fourth round pick, just simply because we have Adam Peters in the building instead of Rivera and Martin Mayhew. First, the second overall pick, the 3 second round picks we would have, the 2 third round picks we would have, and the 2 fourth round picks that we would have if this were to happen are completely different with Adam Peters having those picks than Martin Mayhew and Ron Rivera having it. I feel like that's the best way to break it down. Also, that second round may be a sweet spot to find some really good talent at linebacker, tight end, corner, interior offensive lineman, maybe even edge rusher. So to have an additional one of those could be big time, man. It could be huge. And I mean, again, just looking at potential talents that may be there with one of those second or third round picks. I mean, you have a guy like Keon Coleman that may still be there. My dog, Amarius Mims, the tackle from Georgia, the highest ceiling I've seen of any tackle I've seen come out of the draft in at least 5, maybe even more years than that. Higher ceiling than Darnell Wright, Olu Fashanu, and DeJuan Jones. When we're talking ceiling, I'm not talking about floor, I'm talking about ceiling. You have some people are saying that Troy Fatanu may make it to the early second round. You never know there. You have Kalen King at corner, A.D. Mitchell at receiver from Texas/Georgia. There's so many guys. Maybe a linebacker again like Jeremiah Trotter, maybe a tight end like Jaheim Bell from Florida State, or maybe the Texas tight end as well may be available, and Jatavion Sanders. You never know. Or maybe for some reason Dallas Turner slides. We need edge rusher really bad. Maybe he slides all the way to the early second round, somewhere in the second round. You just never know. Maybe one of those quarterbacks that we want to take a risk on. Maybe Michael Penix Jr. from Washington falls to like the second round, especially if you don't want to take a quarterback second overall. You literally never know. So if you want to go into this draft with as much draft capital as possible to find potential stars and future starters within the first 3 rounds, unlike Ron Rivera and Martin Mayhew could do, this is a great idea. Especially if you're the type that maybe even wants to trade back from the number 2 overall pick to somewhere later in the first round, maybe top 15, maybe top 10 still, in order to get even more first 3 round picks, like more second round picks, third round picks, or maybe even some future firsts from other teams. We can flip this team upside down in one draft with that much draft capital. To trade Jonathan Allen for a second and a fourth and trade back from the number 2 overall pick, Lord have mercy, we would be half the draft ourselves, literally. Or you can look at it as, from this angle, that's additional capital to use if we want to trade up to the number 1 overall pick, maybe package that second and that fourth with our number 2 overall pick, and maybe that's enough to move up to number 1 to get Caleb Williams if that's what they want to do. Or say we do just stick with number 2 overall and actually pick a quarterback there. That's even more draft capital to trade back up into the first round. Remember how we packaged 2 seconds to move back into the late first to get Montez Sweat? Well, if you have 3 seconds, especially with 2 of them being very early, if you want to package 2 or 3 of those to potentially move up to the middle of the first round, or maybe even higher than that, to still have a chance to maybe get Olufashanu or Joe Alt, that will, or even like a Brock Bowers. You never know. There's so many ways that we could finesse the situation to where Jonathan Allen could lead to big benefits for us. And that's just draft capital. Now let's move to the cap space. Of course, when you're saving that much extra money in cap space, you also got to think about the potential free agents we can land and with the after a trade like that. That $21 million in savings this year alone can first of all allow us to re-sign both Curtis Samuel and Antonio Gibson at their projected annual market values and still have $7 million left over in Jonathan Allen savings to spend elsewhere as well. Re-signing some other guys, maybe like Khaleke Hudson, Joey Slye, Jeremy Reeves, and other important cheap people on this team. So if you trade away Jonathan Allen and you're able to save that $21 million, you could potentially bring back Curtis Samuel, Antonio Gibson, Khaleke Hudson, Joey Slye, Jeremy Reeves, and maybe even Jamison Crowder. I mean, you never know. They're all unrestricted free agents. So right now, none of those guys are technically on our team right now. I've already done videos on that. I may do like a full video breakdown on that once again. But it's crazy how many starters from 2023 that are unrestricted free agents right now and are currently not on the team. So Adam Peters has all of the power in the world to completely flip this roster upside down, trading away Jonathan Allen to gain an additional $21 million worth of cap space on top of the already almost $90 million that you have would be insane, man. We could do all kinds of re-signing combinations of players. You could do Kendall Fuller and Khaleke Hudson, but we would be here all day with that $21 million playing around like that. But also, most importantly, of course, you got to think about the outside free agents that are available in as of March that we could potentially sign. That $21 million is almost enough to go and get Brian Burns at free agency just purely from Jonathan Allen's cap space savings alone. Also, that $21 million in Jonathan Allen cap space savings would only be $3 million short of signing Josh Allen in free agency, the edge rusher from the Jaguars. So if you're trying to go elite edge rusher, get one of those guys. It would be beautiful if we could somehow get both, but I highly doubt it. That $21 million could easily help you pay for and probably literally just get by itself one of those guys without even having to add additional cap space in any other way. Also, with that $21 million in cap space savings from trading away Jonathan Allen, you can get creative and even potentially get a Pro Bowl linebacker in Patrick Queen, or maybe you want to do a combination of the Jets right tackle Mekhi Becton, who could potentially be an upgrade over Andrew Wiley, and Texans tight end Dalton Schultz. With just that Jonathan Allen's cap space savings alone, you could potentially get both of those guys that we probably wouldn't even be considering without that additional money. So it's draft capital, additional picks that you can get, and free agent guys. So basically, let's just run a scenario. You trade away Jonathan Allen, then you can finesse it to where that extra second round pick you get, you package that with the other 2 seconds that we already have, move back up into the middle, maybe top 15, top 10 of the first round, and now you're able to take a quarterback number 2 overall, Caleb Williams, Jaden Daniels, Drake May, and still be potentially in range to get like a Olufashanu or a Joe Alt or a Brock Bowers potentially. And then also with the cap space that you gain, imagine those draft picks paired with a Josh Allen or a Brian Burns at edge rusher. That's the type of stuff we're talking about potentially if you trade away Jonathan Allen, and why it would help us in the long run. It would suck for now for on the field reasons, off the field reasons, of course, but long term, it could be strongly beneficial for everybody involved. It's not a win-win, it's a win-win-win, because Jonathan Allen, I feel like, even though he would be a little emotionally hurt about the situation a little bit, he would definitely be happy in the long run being on an immediate contender. Even though I feel like within 5 years, we're going to be better than the Packers. We're going to be the best team in the NFC, in my opinion. Maybe by then, we could trade for him back or something. Who knows? But yeah, man, that's the end of this video. Please get in the comment section. Let me know how you feel about everything discussed in this video. Please stiff arm that like button, stiff arm the subscription button, and stiff arm the bell next to that subscription button so you get notification each and every time I release an informative and opinionated video just like this one that we just did, man. Be on the lookout for my favorite defensive coordinator candidate video that I said I was going to do it today, this morning, as in Thursday, January 18th, but all of the different breaking news, Ben Johnson speaking on Adam Peters, this report that experts are predicting that we trade Jonathan Allen for a second and a fourth, move that back to tomorrow morning, as in Friday morning. So hopefully we'll see, is as long as no other breaking news comes out of nowhere and pushes that further back, then that will be out tomorrow morning. So stay tuned for all the live streams and everything, man. I really appreciate y'all. Catch y'all later. I'm out.